Welcome to the English Chapter.
Read world-famous books and master professional English.
Welcome back to the English Chapter. I'm Liam.
And I'm Maya. And oh my goodness, today's book is one that I genuinely could not put down.
Same. Honestly, same. We are talking about The Psychology of Money by Morgan Housel. Published in 2020, and it has sold over 4 million copies worldwide.
4 million. And the reason so many people love it is because it does not read like a finance textbook. It reads like a conversation. A really eye-opening conversation.
And that is exactly what we are doing today. Maya and I are going to take you through the biggest, most surprising ideas in this book. We are calling each one a Housel said what moment.
Because honestly, some of these ideas will stop you mid-sentence. You will be like, wait, say that again?
So whether you have read the book or this is your first time hearing about it, stay with us. This episode is going to change how you think about money, and maybe even how you think about your whole life.
And as always, we are here to help you grow your English while we grow our minds. So listen carefully, enjoy the conversation, and let's get into it.
Okay, first moment. And this one sets the tone for the whole book. Housel says that no one is crazy when it comes to money.
No one is crazy. Okay, because I can think of some pretty crazy financial decisions I have seen people make.
Right, that is exactly the reaction he is expecting. But his point is this. Every financial decision a person makes, every single one, makes sense to them, based on their own life experience.
So if someone grew up with very little money, they might be terrified of investing. Because to them, losing money feels like losing everything.
Exactly. And someone who grew up in a wealthy family might take big financial risks without even blinking, because losing a little money does not feel dangerous to them. It is just how life works.
That is actually really powerful, because we often judge other people's money choices. We think, why would you do that? But we are forgetting that they have a completely different history with money than we do.
Housel uses this great example. He talks about how people who lived through the Great Depression in the 1930s, when the economy completely collapsed, they almost never bought stocks their whole life, even decades later when things were fine.
Because they lived through the fear. It was not just a history lesson for them. It was a scar. A real, emotional scar.
Yeah, a scar. And that word really stuck with me. Our financial behavior is shaped by experiences we had, sometimes before we even understood what money was.
So the next time someone questions your money decisions, you can say, I am not crazy. I am just shaped by my personal financial history.
Housel approved.
Okay, this next one. I remember reading this part and just sitting back in my chair.
Which part?
The part about luck and risk. Housel says that luck and risk are siblings. They are both the reality that every outcome in life is influenced by forces other than your own effort.
Forces other than your own effort. So you could work incredibly hard and still fail because of bad luck. And someone else could make average decisions and succeed enormously because of good luck.
And he gives one of the most famous examples in the whole book, Bill Gates. And this one is genuinely remarkable. Bill Gates went to one of the very few high schools in the entire world that had a computer in 1968, one of the only ones.
In 1968, computers were enormous machines that almost no school had access to. And Bill Gates just happened to be at that school?
So yes, he is a genius. Yes, he worked incredibly hard, but he also got extraordinarily lucky. And Housel's point is that we almost never talk about that part.
Because we love a clean story. We love he worked hard and became successful. The luck part feels messy. It feels like it takes something away from the achievement.
But does it though? Like, acknowledging that luck played a role does not mean the hard work did not matter. It just means the full picture is more complicated.
Right. And the risk side of this is equally important. Housel talks about someone named Kent Evans, who was actually Bill Gates' best friend in school. Same intelligence, same opportunities. But Kent died in a mountaineering accident as a teenager.
And we never talk about Kent Evans. Because there is no success story to tell.
Which is almost uncomfortable to think about. Because the difference between Bill Gates' story and Kent Evans' story is not just talent or effort. It is something far harder to accept. The randomness of life.
And this is why Housel says we should be careful about who we admire in business. And careful about who we look down on when they fail. Because we are often not seeing the full picture.
Okay, I will be honest. This part of the book made me feel both humbled and slightly terrified.
Same, Liam. Same.
Okay, this is one of my personal favorites, and I think this one is going to hit differently depending on where you are in life.
Go on.
Housel says that wealth is what you do not see. He makes a very clear distinction between being rich and being wealthy, and they are not the same thing.
Wait, being rich and being wealthy are not the same thing? Most people use those words like they mean the exact same thing.
That is exactly the point. He says being rich is about your current income, the money coming in. But wealth, and this is the key part, wealth is the money you do not spend. It is the assets you have saved and invested, the money that is quietly working in the background.
So someone driving a brand new luxury car and wearing expensive clothes might be rich. But if they are spending everything they earn, they have no wealth.
Exactly. And Housel makes this brilliant observation. He says when you see someone driving a fancy car, you do not actually know if they are wealthy. You only know that at some point they had enough money to buy a fancy car. That is it.
Okay, that just made me rethink every time I have ever felt impressed by someone's car.
Right? Because wealth is invisible. The truly wealthy person might be driving a very average car, living in a reasonable house, but they have financial security that most people can only dream about.
And I think this connects to something really important about social media. We are constantly seeing people's spending, their holidays, their outfits, their restaurants, but we are never seeing their savings account.
We see the rich, we never see the wealth. And Housel argues that our obsession with looking wealthy is actually one of the biggest things stopping people from becoming wealthy.
So there is actually a very useful phrase from this chapter. Housel writes that spending money to show people how much money you have is the fastest way to have less money. Read that again slowly when you get a chance. It is worth it.
That sentence alone is worth the price of the book.
Okay, this next one surprised me because it sounds so simple. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized I had genuinely never thought about it this way before.
What is it?
Housel says that saving money does not require a goal or a reason. Most personal finance advice says, save for your retirement, save for a house, save for your children's education.
Yeah, you always hear that. Save with a purpose.
But Housel says no. He says that saving money just to have options and flexibility is a perfectly good reason to save. In fact, it might be the best reason.
Say more.
He talks about how the value of having savings is not just about the specific thing you will buy with them one day. It is about the control it gives you over your own life. When you have savings, you have the ability to say no. No to a bad job. No to a stressful situation. No to something that does not feel right.
Oh, that is actually huge. Because most people think about savings as money for the future. But you are saying Housel sees it as freedom in the present.
Yes, exactly that. He calls it the hidden return on savings. The return is not just financial. It is emotional. It is psychological. It is the ability to sleep at night knowing you have options.
And that changes the whole conversation around saving. It is not boring. It is not delayed gratification. It is actively building your freedom right now.
Okay, I am going to be honest. After reading this part, I opened my banking app and moved some money into savings. Like, immediately.
That might be the most effective book review I have ever heard. This next moment is one that I think will resonate with a lot of people, because it is about the gap between what is financially logical and what is financially right for you as a person.
Okay, give me an example.
So Housel talks about the fact that from a purely mathematical standpoint, you should probably never pay off your mortgage early. The interest rates are low, and you could invest that money and make more return elsewhere.
Yeah, I have heard that argument. On paper, it makes total sense.
But he says, for some people, the feeling of owning their home completely, with no debt, is worth more than any financial return. That peace of mind has a value, even if you cannot put a number on it.
And he is not saying those people are wrong.
Not at all. He is saying that personal finance is personal. Your mental health, your stress levels, your family situation, your history with money, these things matter when making financial decisions. You are not a spreadsheet. You are a human being.
And I love that he gives himself as an example in the book. He actually admits that he and his wife make a financial choice that many experts would say is not optimal.
They keep a significant amount of cash savings, like more than most financial advisors would recommend, because it helps them sleep at night.
And he is a finance writer who clearly understands investing deeply, but he still values the feeling of security over maximum returns.
And the lesson there is so important. The best financial plan is not always the one with the highest expected return. It is the one you can actually stick to, without losing your mind.
Which, honestly, is a relief. Because I have definitely made financial decisions that were not mathematically perfect, but felt right for my life. And this book made me feel so much better about that. Okay, we are getting into some really interesting territory now. This next idea took me a moment to fully understand, but once it clicked hard.
What is it?
Housel talks about something called tail events. Now, in statistics, a tail event is something that happens very rarely. It is at the extreme end of what is possible. But Housel argues that these rare events are actually responsible for the majority of outcomes in finance and in life.
So he is saying that a tiny number of extraordinary events, not thousands of them, just a few, drive most of the results?
Exactly. He gives the example of investing. He says that if you look at the entire history of the stock market, a huge proportion of the total gains came from a very small number of exceptional days. Not thousands of ordinary days, just a handful of extraordinary ones.
So you could be invested in the market for years, having average results, and then a few remarkable moments change everything.
And this applies beyond investing. He talks about how in a venture capital firm, most of their investments fail or do okay. But one or two massive successes pay for everything. Those are the tail events.
And actually, this makes me think about careers too. You might work hard consistently for years, and then one connection, one project, one opportunity shows up and changes everything. The tail event.
Right. And Housel's message here is, do not give up during the long stretches of average, because you never know when a tail event is coming. And if you have already quit, you will miss it.
That is actually really motivating in a quiet kind of way. Like, it is not screaming at you to hustle harder. It is saying, stay in the game, just keep going.
There is a phrase in English that fits this perfectly. Show up. Just keep showing up, because you cannot predict when the tail event will arrive. You can only be there when it does.
Okay, this next concept is one that I think is genuinely life-changing if you really take it seriously. And it applies way beyond money.
I am ready.
Housel talks about the importance of what he calls a margin of safety, or, as he also calls it, room for error. The idea is straightforward. Whatever you think is going to happen, build in a buffer for being wrong.
So, like, if you think you can survive financially for 3 months without a job, save enough for 6 months.
Exactly. Because you might be right. Things might go exactly as planned, but you might also be wrong. And the world is full of things you cannot predict.
And I think this is something a lot of people intellectually agree with, but then emotionally resist. Because we want to believe our plans are good. We do not want to imagine them failing.
Housel actually uses this really memorable idea. He says, "The most important part of every plan is planning for the plan not going according to plan."
Say that 3 times fast.
But it is so true. And he connects this to something called avoiding ruin. He makes the point that you only need to get rich once, but you can go broke more than once if you take too many risks with no room for error.
And that is something I think a lot of young people, especially in the age of social media, do not fully internalize. There's so much excitement around big bets, going all in, taking massive risks.
And sometimes those work. But Housel is saying the most important financial skill is not making big wins. It is surviving long enough to keep playing, avoiding the catastrophic loss.
And this is a really useful English phrase, by the way. When we say margin of safety, we mean the extra space or buffer we give ourselves in case something goes wrong. You might hear it in finance, in engineering, in everyday life. I left a margin of safety. It is a good phrase to know. Okay, this next one. I want to be upfront. This one hit me a little personally.
In a good way or a bad way?
In a very honest way. So Housel talks about something he calls the end of history illusion. And the idea is that human beings are very good at recognizing how much they have changed in the past. But here is the twist. We are terrible at imagining how much we will change in the future.
Oh, so we look back and say, wow, I am so different from who I was 5 years ago. But then we look forward and say, I think I am pretty much done changing now.
Yes, exactly that. And Housel connects this to financial planning. He says people make long-term financial plans based on who they are right now, their current values, their current goals, their current lifestyle.
But the person who will actually be living with those financial decisions might be a very different person.
He talks about how people pay for gym memberships they never use, because their past self signed up enthusiastically, and their present self simply does not feel the same way anymore.
I feel attacked.
We all do. But the financial version of this is more serious. He talks about people locking themselves into very specific long-term career paths or financial commitments, and then discovering years later that they do not want that life anymore.
And the lesson is not do not plan. The lesson is to build flexibility into your plans, to not go so all in on one vision of the future that you cannot grow into a different person.
He actually has this beautiful point about balance. He says avoiding the extreme ends of financial decisions is a good strategy. Avoiding very high-income jobs that demand everything from you, but also avoiding extreme frugality where you sacrifice all enjoyment now for a future self who might want different things.
The middle path, which is actually harder than it sounds.
Much harder, but so worth it.
Okay, we are getting towards the end of our big moments, and this next one is about price, but not the kind of price you are thinking of.
Go on.
Housel makes this argument that everything in finance has a price, and the price of getting good investment returns is not money. It is volatility and uncertainty and doubt.
So the price you pay for potentially high returns is the emotional discomfort of watching your investments go up and down, sometimes dramatically.
Exactly, and he compares it to buying a ticket to a theme park. You pay for the experience, and part of that experience is the fear before the big drop. You cannot have the ride without that feeling.
So if you sell your investments every time the market drops because you cannot handle the anxiety, you are basically sneaking into the theme park and then running away before the ride even starts.
That is a great way to put it, actually.
I learned from the best. But seriously, Housel says a lot of investors treat volatility as a fine, like something bad that happened that they want to avoid in the future. But actually, it is not a fine. It is a fee. It is the cost of admission.
And this is where the book becomes really practical, because understanding that volatility is a fee rather than a punishment can completely change how you feel when you watch your investments drop. You are not being punished. You are paying for the potential reward.
And I think a lot of people abandon their investment strategies at exactly the wrong moment. Right when the market is down. Right when it feels the worst. Because they did not understand that the discomfort was part of the deal.
And this takes us back to something we talked about earlier. Your financial behavior matters more than your financial knowledge. You can know this intellectually, but can you handle it emotionally when it is actually happening?
That is the real question. Okay, last one. And Housel saves something really special for this part of the book. Something that ties everything together.
What is it?
He talks about what money is actually for, at its deepest level. And his answer is control over your time.
Control over your time.
He says that the highest form of wealth is the ability to wake up in the morning and say, I can do whatever I want today. Not because you are irresponsible, but because you have the financial security to make choices based on what you value, not what you desperately need.
And he connects this to happiness research. He says one of the strongest findings in the science of human happiness is that people who feel in control of their time are significantly happier than those who do not, regardless of their income.
Which is why someone with a modest income who has freedom over their schedule can be genuinely happier than someone earning enormous amounts but feeling completely trapped by their job.
And Housel is not saying money does not matter. He is saying that money is a tool, and the best thing that tool can buy you is not a car or a house. It is something far more valuable: autonomy, the freedom to spend your time the way you choose.
And this is why everything we talked about today connects. Saving money is not about the savings themselves. It is about the options they give you. The wealth you cannot see is the freedom you are quietly building. The margin of safety is the ability to say no. All of it comes back to control over your own life.
And I think that is the most important thing this book teaches. Not a trick or a formula, but a way of thinking. A way of understanding that your relationship with money is really your relationship with your own freedom.
Morgan Housel said what? He said that how you behave with money matters more than what you know. That luck and risk are real. That wealth is invisible. That saving is freedom. And that control over your time might be the most valuable thing money can ever give you.
And he said all of that without a single graph or formula.
Which is maybe the most impressive thing of all.
Okay, that is our episode on the psychology of money by Morgan Housel. And honestly, I feel like we only scratched the surface.
There is so much more in this book. It is one of those books where every chapter has at least one idea that makes you stop and just think.
If you want to go deeper, we absolutely recommend reading the full book. It is not long, it is not difficult, and it is genuinely one of the most readable finance books ever written.
And for our English learners, this book is also a fantastic reading exercise. The language is clear and conversational. Housel writes the way a smart friend explains something, not the way a textbook does.
So go grab a copy, read a chapter, and then maybe think about what your relationship with money actually looks like. Not your bank balance, your relationship, your behavior, your habits.
Because as Housel taught us, that is where everything begins.
Thank you so much for spending this time with us on the English chapter. If you enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe, leave us a comment, and let us know which idea hit you the hardest.
Mine was the wealth you cannot see. Genuinely changed the way I think about what I am working toward.
Mine was the room for error. I am now rethinking every plan I have ever made.
In the best way, though.
In the best way. All right, everyone. We will see you in the next chapter.
Bye!